The crosshairs settled on the thickest steel plate known to man. Through the magnified optic, the monster looked invincible. It was a moving fortress of jagged camouflage and terrified reputation. The Tiger Armbus, the nightmare of the Allied forces. One mistake, 1 second of hesitation, and the 88mm cannon staring back would erase everything. The gunner's hand hovered over the firing mechanism. His heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird. If you enjoy witnessing history unfold through the eyes of those who lived it, please take a moment to subscribe. The air inside the turret was already stale, tasting of oil and nervous sweat. This wasn't a simulation. This was the moment the entire invasion had been holding its breath for. The moment the underdog finally bared its teeth. It was August 8th, 1944, Normandy. Specifically, the dusty, sun-baked fields near Saint-Aignan-de-Craménil. The hedgerows were thick, ancient tangles of roots and earth that turned every field into a killing box. The breakout from the beaches was stalling. The Germans had deployed their elite panzer divisions to crush the British and Canadian advance, and sitting in the middle of an orchard, concealed by leaves and shadow, was a single tank, a Sherman Firefly. It looked like the standard American tank that had been burning by the hundreds across France. Same chassis, same thin armor. But it had one secret. A long, awkward barrel protruding from the turret. The 17-pounder. The only gun in the Allied arsenal capable of punching a hole through a Tiger. Inside sat Trooper Joe Eakins, a shoemaker from Northamptonshire turned gunner. He had never killed a tank before. The interior of the Firefly was a claustrophobic hell. It was hot. Unbearably hot. The engine roared directly behind the crew, a constant, deafening vibration that rattled teeth. The loader, huddled to the left of the gun, had barely enough room to breathe, let alone wrestle the massive shells into the breach. Eakins peered through the periscope. The heat haze shimmered over the cornfields. Anything? Nothing but dust, Sergeant. Keep watching. They're coming. The radio crackled with static and panicked voices from the forward units. The 12th SS Panzer Division was counterattacking, and leading them was a ghost, Michael Wittmann, the Black Baron. The deadliest tank ace of the war, he was somewhere out there in the tall grass. The ground began to tremble. Not a subtle vibration, but a deep, rhythmic thumping that traveled up through the tracks and into the soles of their boots. The birds in the orchard went silent. Then, the hedgerow ahead exploded. 3 Tigers broke cover. They didn't crawl. They surged. Their wide tracks tore up the earth, tossing clods of dirt high into the air. They were angled, aggressive, hunting for targets. To a Sherman crew, a Tiger looked like a moving block of concrete. Its frontal armor was 100mm thick. Standard Allied shells just bounced off it like pebbles. Traverse right, traverse right. On target. Steady, Joe, steady. The turret whined as Eakins spun the hand crank. The Firefly was not a perfect machine. The gun was too heavy for the turret. It threw the balance off. The gears groaned under the weight. Every movement took muscle and desperation. In his diary, a tank commander from the same regiment later wrote, "You felt naked in a Sherman. You knew that if you saw a Tiger, he had probably seen you 5 minutes ago. You were just waiting for the hammer to fall." That was the reality. The Firefly was a glass cannon. It could kill, yes, but it couldn't take a hit. One shell from those Tigers would turn Eakins and his crew into a funeral pyre. The lead Tiger rotated its turret. The long 88mm gun swept across the field, searching. It was looking for movement. It was looking for them. "Range 800! Fire!" Eakins slammed the foot pedal. The 17-pounder didn't just fire, it screamed. The recoil was violent, rocking the 30-ton tank backward on its suspension. Inside the turret, the noise was absolute. A flash of white light blinded them for a fraction of a second. The breech slammed open, ejecting the spent casing with a metallic clang. Smoke filled the compartment immediately. The sharp, acrid sting of cordite burned their throats. "Hit! You hit him!" Through the smoke, Ekins saw it. The lead Tiger shuddered. A black hole had appeared in its side. But it was still moving. The German crew was good. They were turning to face the threat. This was the problem with the Firefly. The gun was powerful, but it gave away their position instantly. The muzzle flash was massive. Now every German gunner in the sector knew exactly where they were. "Load! Load AP!" "Up!" The loader shoved the next shell in. The breech block snapped shut. The Tiger's turret was almost facing them. Ekins could see the dark muzzle brake of the enemy gun. It looked like a black eye staring into his soul. "Fire!" The second shot tore through the air. It struck the Tiger just under the turret ring. A brilliant spark of metal on metal, followed by a catastrophic eruption. The ammunition inside the German tank cooked off. The turret, weighing tons, lifted momentarily into the air on a pillar of flame. One down. But there were two more. The other Tigers didn't panic. They executed a perfect pincer movement, splitting left and right. They knew the game. They had to flank the ambush. Ekins was sweating profusely. His hands were slippery on the controls. The smoke in the turret was getting thicker, making it hard to see the optic. "Get me the one on the left. Traversing." The Firefly's turret motor whined in protest. It was too slow. The German tank on the left was accelerating, its engine roaring like a beast. It was closing the distance. At this range, the Tiger couldn't miss. Ekins forced his breathing to slow down. He remembered his training. Lead the target. Anticipate the movement. Target acquired. Wait. The Tiger fired. The shell screamed past the Firefly's hull, missing by inches. The shockwave rattled the equipment inside. Dust fell from the ceiling of the tank. They were alive, but only by the grace of luck. "Fire!" Ekins sent the round downrange. It struck the Tiger's track. The steel links shattered. The massive German tank slewed violently to the side, its momentum carrying it into a ditch. It was immobilized, but its gun was still active. It was a wounded animal, and wounded animals are dangerous. "Finish it! Loading!" The loader's hands were bleeding, knuckles scraped raw against the breech guard. He didn't care. He slammed the next round home. Ekins adjusted his aim. He aimed for the flat plate of the superstructure. The shot connected. Smoke poured from the hatches of the second Tiger. The crew began to bail out, scrambling over the hull to escape the inferno. Two down. "Where is the third one? Where is he?" "I lost him. Right. Check right." The third Tiger had used the chaos to flank them. It was moving through the orchard, crushing apple trees like matchsticks. It was Michael Wittmann's tank. The ace. He was less than 600 yards away. He had a clear line of sight. Ekins wiped the sweat from his eyes. He couldn't see the target through the hedgerow. He could only see the tops of the trees snapping as the monster pushed through. "He's coming through the hedge! 2 o'clock!" The commander's voice cracked. This was it. The Firefly's armor was 76 centimeters at its thickest point. The Tiger's shell could penetrate that from 2 kilometers away. At 600 yards, it would go through the Firefly and out the other side. The nose of the Tiger punched through the greenery. It was terrifyingly close. The Zimmerit coating on its hull was clearly visible, a rough, textured skin designed to stop magnetic mines. Ekins didn't wait for the order. He spun the hand crank, fighting the weight of the gun. The crosshairs drifted onto the Tiger. The German gunner was fast. The 88 mm was already swinging toward them. It was a race, a duel of milliseconds. Fire! Firing! Both tanks seemed to erupt at once. The ground shook. Eakins didn't feel the recoil this time. He just watched the tracer streak across the gap. The shell hit the Tiger's engine compartment at the rear. It pierced the armor plate and ignited the fuel tanks. For a second, nothing happened. The Tiger just stopped. It sat there, menacing and silent. Then a small wisp of white smoke curled up from the rear deck. Then the explosion tore the world apart. The blast was so violent it blew the Tiger's turret clean off the hull. It flipped in the air and landed upside down in the grass. The hull burned with a ferocity that turned the steel white hot. Silence rushed back into the orchard. Inside the Firefly, nobody spoke. The only sound was the heavy breathing of the loader and the hum of the radio. Target destroyed. Eakins took his eye away from the sight. He was trembling uncontrollably now. The adrenaline crash hit him like a physical blow. He opened the hatch and climbed out. The cool air hit his face. Across the field, 3 pillars of black smoke rose into the summer sky. The invincible Tigers, the kings of the battlefield. They were burning scrap. In just 12 minutes, one shoemaker in a modified Sherman had destroyed 3 of the most feared machines in existence. A nearby infantry officer wrote in a letter home just days later, "I walked past the wrecks this morning. They look like dead dinosaurs. It is hard to believe anything made by man could destroy them, but the Firefly did." The duality of the moment was stark. The Tiger was a masterpiece of engineering, a symbol of terror. The Firefly was a rush job, a desperate attempt to fit a big gun into a small box. But on that day, the desperate attempt won. According to official records, the death of Michael Wittmann was disputed for years. Many claimed it was a rocket from a Typhoon aircraft. Others claimed it was Canadian forces. But forensic analysis and battlefield archaeology later confirmed it. The kill shot came from the direction of Eakins' Firefly. A single 17-pound shell ended the career of the Panzer Ace. The duel changed the psychology of the Western Front. The Germans could no longer sit back and pick off Shermans with impunity. The Allied crews walked a little taller. They knew that if they had a Firefly in their troop, they had a fighting chance. They had a giant slayer. If you are fascinated by these pivotal moments of armored warfare, make sure you are subscribed. There are countless stories buried in the archives that deserve to be told. The Firefly wasn't the best tank of the war. It was cramped, unergonomic, and easy to spot. But it was the right tank at the right time. It proved that technical superiority doesn't always guarantee victory. Sometimes it comes down to the man looking through the sight. War turns machines into legends, but it is the people inside them who pay the price. Joe Eakins went back to making shoes after the war. He rarely spoke about that day in the orchard. He didn't see himself as a hero. He saw himself as a man who did his job so he could go home. But in the history books, the duel remains. The day the glass cannon shattered the steel monster.